Good morning, everybody. We're on Daf Samach Hamad Beis on the last line. Maseches Gittin in the Bavli. מצודות chayav oifes v'dogim yesh be'en v'chulu. It says that the nets with which people capture the chaya, wild animals, not wild animals, but chaya, oifes and dogim, birds, fowl, and fish, have a problem of gezel mipnei darkei shalom, says the Mishnah. So the Gemara clarifies and tells us. Sorry, 1 second. So the Gemara explains like this: Uzli, if it's made out of threads and there's an inside, uari, I don't know how to pronounce that. It's like made out of also a type of material, like a reed or something, that has an inside. Everybody agrees that you have a kinyan. If you capture an animal with your nets that has a toich, there's a kinyan. If it's like hooks, and basically it doesn't have a toich. These things don't have a toich, so it's not really a kinyan. It's only because of darkei shalom that it's a kinyan. If a chedesh v'katan finds something, it's considered gezel because of darkei shalom. Rabbi Yossi says it's gezel gomer. It's completely stealing if you take from them what they have found. Rav Chisda, gezel gomer. Rav Chisda explained that what Rabbi Yossi was saying gezel gomer, he meant midrabanan. It's not that mamash have a kinyan. Even Rabbi Yossi doesn't say that mamash have a kinyan. It's midrabanan. It's considered gezel gomer. So the question is, what's the difference if it's considered gezel gomer midivreim, or if it's considered gezel because of darkei shalom? If the guy went ahead and took away from the chedesh shita and katan, there's mitzia. According to the chum, we're not going to take it away from them. He did the wrong thing, but we're not going to. The judges are not going to take away. According to Rabbi Yossi, they're going to take him away. Rashi says, according to the chum, they're going to take it away, but it's not considered gezel to make you pasal eidos, and it's not a lav midaraisa, but it's going to take it back from you. Says the Gemara like this: if an oni is taking on the top of the palm tree, olive tree, and the olives fall down, what is on the ground is considered gezel midivreim. That is a gezel gomer. If he's mamish putting on the ground bayad, it's considered gezel gomer. Google it. I don't know. Rav Kana have a ka'ozil l'hutzal. So we have a story. Rav Kana went to Hutzal. Chazia lahu gavra deveshodi oifoi v'konasur and tamre. He saw that there was a person who was throwing sticks, and there was dates falling down the palm tree. It's very hard to climb up a palm tree. Ozol kamin kid v'ochil. He was going and he was taking this guy's dates, and he was eating the dates. He doesn't have tzitzis. Mostly, he doesn't have tzitzis. So what happened was, it was coming from my hands. I guess maybe it came through his hands. Maybe he took it and put it on the ground when it fell down. I don't know. Put it in a pile. He says, you must be from the place of Rav Yoshia. Also, he said Rav Yoshia was a tzaddik yisoid olam, because he ensures that all the people in his area also know the dinim, and he was moida that he was correct when he took he shouldn't have taken the dates. Mistama, he didn't know that it was also the yodi. Mistama, he didn't realize that it came to his hands. That's what I assume. Even if it didn't come into his hands, there's a problem of darkei shalom. So why did Rav Kano take it from him? He was over also in darkei shalom. So maybe he thought the guy wasn't Jewish. It's hard to believe that. You didn't have a distinct style of dress. I'm not sure. We see the godless of Rav Kana, that he was moide and poidish, and he was mishabeach Rabbi Yeshia. Tonu Rabbanan, Befarnisem ani Enochem ani Yisrael. No, I skip. Im Machin biyad ani Enochem lekashichem v'feim b'darkasham. We don't protest if ani Enochem take lekashichem and feah because of darkashalom. The lekashichem and feah are different types of produce that the aniyim are allowed to take. Tonu Rabbanan, Befarnisem ani Enochem ani Yisrael. We support the poor people who are non-Jews together with the Yidden. We visit the sick of Nachum together with the sick we saw. That's very interesting. Like if you're going to the hospital to visit the Jewish patients, you shouldn't totally ignore the non-Jewish ones, I suppose. The koivrin, like in other words, you go into a room and there's a roommate who's not Jewish, you should also kind of, because of Darkei Shalom, you should maybe say hi and be pleasant to the Nachum, wish them well. We bury them together. Rashi says, if you found the dead non-Jews together who died together, you take care of them. Not that you're burying them in a Jewish cemetery, but you take care of them as well. Doesn't mean you have to go search out non-Jewish dead. I don't think so, but it's very relevant, especially for an organization like Zaka, for example, and so on. Okay, now we're up to the last Mishnah in Parak. Says the Mishnah. Mashelas Isha Lachaver. We're on Daf Samach Aleph on Bavli 61a by the Mishnah. Mashelas Isha Lachaverto Achshud al Shviz Nofu Kvar B'Rechaim Betaner. A woman who's suspected about Shemitah. We're not 100% sure, but she's suspected. Rashi says that she keeps Peiros Shviz from the beer of Eloch. You're supposed to at a certain time not eat certain Peiros Shviz, depending if it's available in the field or not. And she's choshed, you could still lend her kalim, nofa, which is a nofa of different types of sieves, lechaim v'taner is a millstone and an up. But you shouldn't do the sifting and the grinding together with her, because for all you know, she's using Peiros Shviz. Rashi explains also during the time of the Aveda, you can't help them. If you're not sure if they're going to do an Aveda, so you're giving them the Caleb. That's not, you're not mamish being Masei b'shas Aveda, but b'shas grinding. It's possible that they're mamish using Peiros Shviz. Interestingly, Rashi says, Peiros Shviz, let's name a beer velach. Lishmer Peiros Shviz. So you should know if it's a type of fruit that no one else is allowed to have. He ran off. So like it says, it's very interesting. So it should be recognizable according to Rashi. I'm not sure. Eishes chover mashelas eishes amoritz. If you have an eishes chover, she could lend to the eishes amoritz nofa kvaru and nofa asiv and a kvara. And she's allowed to help take out to do beira, right? Take out the rocks or whatever it is, and to grind and sift, to thresh, the winnow. I think I forgot exactly. But when she puts the water in and makes it into dough, then you shouldn't help her, because then you have a problem of tumah, because it's challah, it turns into challah, an issue of challah. So she might be metame kelim tameim. She has kelim tameim. What if the kelim are all yours? She might make the kelim tameim. This is because of Darkei Shalom. So you shouldn't even help them. As long as it's not b'shas aveda mamash, you're allowed to give it to them because of Darkei Shalom. What
about the concern that if she makes the kelim wet, that she's going to make the kelim of the chaver tameh?
Yeah, you have to mimatar your kelim afterwards. You have to put in the mikvah. I think so. That's not a problem. There's no isser in making kelim tmeim. Problem is for challah. You can't cause challah to come to them. It's interesting. You could help the Nachem mamish, but by Shemitah, during the Shemitah year. We'll talk about this. But not a yid. You can say shalom aleichem to a goy because of Darkei Shalom. good morning is better. The problem with saying Shalom Aleichem is because Rashi says it's the name of Shem Shemayim. Shalom is a Shmei Shal Kadosh Baruch Hu. So if you say good morning, it's for sure not a problem. Okay, so the Gemara asks, Maishna Reisha, Maishna Seif. In the ratio, we said Leisover. You're not even allowed to help the woman about Shemitah to sift. To sift. In the Sefer, we said you are allowed to help her sift. You just can't help her once it turns into dough because of challah, because of tumah. So what's the difference? So the Gemara answers, the issue is only tumah, though. She's not maestros. Most of them are ma'aser. So you could help them. It's only a chashash midrabanan than they're not ma'aser. So you could help them with their paytas, even if you're not sure if they're ma'aser. But when it comes to challah, by the time it turns into challah, then you have a problem of tumah. That's a whole different chash. That's why you have to stop. Mashenka by shvius. Shvius is something else. Shvius, we're choishish that this woman is not careful with shemitah, so you can't help her. It's a very strong answer. Rav doesn't agree that Rav Amar is master. I think the halacha is like a bayah actually in this case. Rav says it would be a problem if it would be a regular amaretz. Because it's mechzal mechza, says Rashi. It is 50-50. It would be a problem. You wouldn't be allowed to be tover. Elamai, what's our mission talking about? Eishes amaretz is not a regular amaretz. It's a different amaretz. It's an amaretz of Ramir. Here we're talking about the amaretz of Ramir. That the chashash is when it comes to Tum and Tara. So why are you allowed to be tovor? Because Kolzman that there's no problem of challah. It's only an issue of Tum and Tara midrabanan. Third doesn't say you should have chulin b'tara. Third only says you should have truma b'tara. So Kolzman, there's no challah there. Even if it'll become tamei, you don't have to worry. Even though l'chayda, you know for sure that eventually she's going to turn into challah. Yeah, that's not your issue. That's their private. That's what they're doing. It's interesting that in such a situation, even though you know where it's headed, eventually she's going to turn into dough. Kol's man, she's not actually dealing with the dough. You could help her, even if it's heading there. As long as it's not there yet, you could help her. The moment it hits dough, then you have a problem of challah, which is also midiraisa. Then you have to be potish. You have to stop. The Tanya, it says in the Brayse says, "Oh, amaretz kol shein eichel chulin kulov b'tara divrei Meir." It says if you don't need chulin b'tara. Chom meim kol shein ma'aser pereisov. Chom say an amaretz is someone who's not ma'aser pereisov. So it's actually a machlokes. It's a machlokes between Rashi and Tosfos. Rashi says Rav holds that Roiv Amaretz is mechza mechza. Ma'ameretz are ma'aser mechza mechza. Tosfos says no. Rav also holds Roiv Amaretz ma'aser, but here we're machmer because we're talking about siyua that your mom is helping them. So again, the answer of Rav Meir is that our mission is going lefi divrei Rav Meir. According to Rav Meir, Amaretz. An Amaretz in the Mishnah, we call an Amaretz someone who doesn't eat chulav b'tara. Maybe he holds Amaretz our master. It's interesting that in general we say Rav Meir is chayish l'miyut. Rav Meir is the one who is worried about the miyut. So actually, Tosfos points out what I was talking about. He asks, if it's heading towards challah, you shouldn't even help her with the sifting. He says because it doesn't have shem challah yet, it's okay. As long as it doesn't shas doesn't have shem challah yet, it's okay. Okay, this is a very complicated Gemara. So the Gemara asks, says in the end, the mishatatil, from when she puts in the water, you shouldn't touch it. It's a rayo that the Reisha is not talking about tum and taro. In other words, if you Rav are going to say that the problem is because of Tumah and Taro, so why do we even have an issue to help her with to be sover, to be merakeh, to be toichen with her? It should be mutter legamri. It should be totally allowed. Whole zman that she's not dealing with the dough, it's chulin. So if it's chulin, you should be allowed to help her. Nevertheless, the Mishnah only says it's mutter because of darkei shalom. The Mishnah should say it's mutter legamri. I mean, I could argue honestly, because you know where it's headed. So it's Mishnah say pasha. So the Gemara says, the Reisha is talking about tumas chulin, which I guess in some cases midrabanan, if you're oichel chulin b'taharo, we're talking about peiros that are huchsher lekabel tuma. They are huchsher lekabel tuma, and she's going to make the chulin tameh. Therefore, you probably shouldn't help her make the chulin tameh. It's better not to cause tuma to chulin. Shouldn't cause chulin midrabanan, but nevertheless, a chomer mekel because of darkei shalom. But the Sefer is talking about tumas chalo, that there's an isser deraisa here. There's a problem with deraisa of making a tameh. There you should have to stop. Raminu, there's a contradiction. We're turning the page now to samach aleph on base. It says, you're allowed to grind and give as a pikodin to those who each that you're choishes to each shmita shvis, and to those who eat their fruits betuma, you give it pikodin. We're not worried they're going to switch it with their own fruit, even though you don't trust their kashrus. You could give their food. You could give them your food as a pikodin, as a collateral, as a deposit. But you're not allowed to be toichen the tavu of eichle shvis or the tavu of eichle perisim betuma. So this is a question on Rava. Rava said that if it's only an issue of tumah, you're allowed to be toichen, you're allowed to help them. If it's an issue of to be toichen, of grinding betuma, you're allowed to help them because of darkei shalom. And here we see clearly it says not. There is talking about you're giving them the food, and we're worried that he's going to eat the truma betuma. So you're giving it to him. So basically, Abai is saying there we're talking about in our Mishnah we're talking about chulin. Chulin is only it's caused tumah to chulin is not a problem. Here we're talking about in this brisa we're talking about truma. So because it's truma and when you're dealing with a kohen, that's why you're not allowed to give it to eat. So the Gemara says if that's the case, if you're talking about a kohen and we're talking about truma, yochi mafkide, and you're allowed to give him as a deposit, you're allowed to give truma to a kohen as a deposit. Maybe he'll swap it out with his own. But Aminu, there's a contradiction. It says mafkidin truma yisrael amaretz v'leitzol kohen amaretz. You're not allowed to give a deposit of truma to a kohen who's an amaretz because he's comfortable with it. So if you're going to say we're talking about you giving it to a kohen, and we're talking about truma, not chulin in this brayso, how could you give it to him as a pikadin, as a collateral?
Does a kohen eat truma chutz la'aretz? Kohen chutz la'aretz.
Well, theoretically, but we don't do it today because everybody is cheskas tamei.
So, also
I mean, the truth is you can't really bring truma in chutz la'aretz because there were geyser tuma b'chutz la'aretz. The avir, even the airspace of chutz la'aretz causes tuma.
Yes.
You'd have a big problem of getting the tuma out into the.
Yes.
You know, it's interesting. The Gemara has to give theoretical examples of how you could have an oil zaruk. An oil zaruk, right? A tent which is in the air. That's what we talk about tumas aver instead of the gush, instead of the ground. Nowadays, it's very, very practical. You have all these. You can have a helicopter, you can have airplanes, so on. But luckily, there's a hefsek because the cargo space underneath that will block the tumah from going into the airplane itself. Anyway, so again, the question is, if we're talking about a kohen, you're giving him mamish a truma, and you're worried that he's going to swap it with his own, and he's going to make a tumah and so on. Why could he give it to him as a deposit, as a collateral? He's going to cause tumah to your truma. Why could he give it to him as a bekad? It says clearly you're not allowed to. My skin is starting to get dachuk. Allah's answer is dachuk, obviously. We're talking about bekli cheres amuk of tzamid pasul. It's an earthenware vessel which is totally sealed. So cheres doesn't become tummy from the gav, from the outside. It only becomes tummy from the inside. And here it's sealed. But the fact is, it could still become tummy to Maseches. The kohen's wife who's a nida could move it, and that alone will cause it to become tummy. She doesn't have to touch the inside, just moving it. The Mishnah that says you're not allowed to be, in our Mishnah that it says you are allowed. No, sorry. The brisa that says you are allowed to be mafkid, it's talking about peiris shalei huchsharu. It's not huchshar l'kabel tumah, so it's okay. The brisa that says you're not allowed to be mafkid peiris for the kohen is talking about peiris shehuchshar. It's already able to receive tumah because it came into contact with mine. Ramidu, there's a contradiction. Gittin says if you bring wheat to l'teichen kuti l'teichen amar, it's the grinder who's a kuti or an amar, so they're not careful with meiser. You're okay when it comes to meiser and shmita, but not for tumah. You're not okay with tumah. So we're worried that they make it tumah. So it's a big contradiction with what we just said. We said you're able to be mafkid by ichli shvis and ichli perisem tumah. And here we're saying that you can't be sure that it's not tumah. Says the Gemara, "Hi, my rumia. What was your question? We already said that the first price of the three that you are allowed to give it to them as a bekadin is talking about if it's not huchshar l'kabel tumah. The Gemara dekarele my karele. Why was he b'chalal asking? We already established the answer. We already made the differentiation. The answer is Mishum de Kaboy, the Mir Mechritela. It was like a follow-up. He wanted to ask a follow-up question on it. So the question is, you're going to say that we're not worried they're going to swap it? You're saying that we're not worried it's going to become tamei. What about swapping it? You're going to say we're not worried they're going to swap it? So then we have a problem. Sorry, if you give food to your mother-in-law to keep for you, you have to be master what you're giving to her, and also what you're taking from her, because you have to be worried it's something else. We're talking about if your mother-in-law is an amoritz and you're a Talmud Chacham, you're a chaver. Because we're worried, we suspect that she's going to swap out the food if it spoils, and then she's going to swap it out with new, fresh food. Says the Gemara, Tainma there was taught the reason. Talking about her daughter here. It's her daughter's food. It's just her son-in-law gave it to her. She's embarrassed from her son-in-law, so she's not going to tell him, but she wants to help her daughter, so she's going to swap it, so her son-in-law has to be ma'aser what he gets from her. I mean, the best thing would be to try to educate her, but I guess it's hard. It's not easy. So the Gemara now asks, we're not, if it's not your mother-in-law, we're not worried that she's going to swap it. But if you give to an innkeeper, Rashi says, if you have a Talmud who's learning from his rabbi, and he's staying by an Amaretz who's a pundikis, and she's baking his bread, you have to master what you give her and what you take from her. Because she's switching it. There is different. She's an innkeeper. She's moida heter, and she says like this. The Amra, she's going to say, he's going to eat, I want him to eat the hot, and I'm going to eat the cold. In other words, she also wants, similar to the case of the mother-in-law when we're talking about a Talmud. She's his host, so it's a different story. So here is a moedik and a kuda, even though maybe they're not so careful with kashrus, she still wants to help a Talmud Chacham. Not kashrus, with meiser. She still is going to want to help him. Adrabah, to swap it out. She means well. She has a good intentions. So now the Gemara asks, you're still not worried that fine. So you answered the Pundakis has made a heter. What about everybody else? But Tanya, the it says in the Brayso. You're allowed to be toichin with the am audits when she's tamei. Avaloy bisman she toida, but not when she's tar. Reb Shimon ben Elazar Reimer ap bisman she tmei alei titchoin meshachaverta nesenes laveichelas. We're worried even when she's tamei, not to grind together with her, because her friend will give her the food. Now the problem is, we're going to give her food that's not musa, that doesn't have tithes. So now the Gemara says, Hashta Mignav Ganva, we're worried that she's mamish going from her husband to give to her friend. You're going to say that she's not, we're not worried they're going to swap it out if you give it as a pikadon. We're on the next page, Tamach Beis Amud Aleph. We see an ox, if he threshes, is allowed to eat from what he's threshing. So she should also be allowed to eat from the food. If she's helping me to grind it, she should be allowed to eat from it. So it's different. She's moed a heter. She just thinks it's okay. We're on the top of Samach Beis Amud Aleph. I think we'll stop from the Bavli today. We'll finish the parak tomorrow, Mitzvah Hashem. Now we're getting back into Gittin soon. We'll go to the Yerushalmi. We're on Daf Chavav Amud Beis in the Yerushalmi. Parak Hamishi. Fifth parak, Halacha Gimel in the middle.
Chavav Amud Beis.
Yeah. We're up to I think
Up to what?
Rabbi Chia B'Shem Rabbi Yechon, right before Apik.
How does that work with how many lines?
Rabbi is 5 lines in.
Perek Hamishi.
Yeah. Everybody have it?
Not yet. What page is it on this Gemara, the regular Gemara?
It's Chof Ches Amud Aleph 28a, probably towards the top of the page.
Well, that's where I am, so I just have to
28.
top
you said?
side. Yeah.
No. And you have the article, right? Or do you have the regular?
Talking to me or to Baruch?
Does Baruch have the article? You guys ran out.
No, art school.
It's Chof Vav Amud Beis 26b. Okay. Rabbi Chia B'Shem Rabbi Yechon Omer Af B'Achilas Peiros Kachi Avda. If you have B'Achilas Peiros and it's mashu, it's something which is kotzutz. If they already know. In other words, we said you can't be goyva min hamishubadin if somebody steals a field and then he sells it and the buyer was mashkia and there was peiros there. You can't. There was peiros there from the time of the theft. You don't get the peiros from Meshubadin, you only get it from Bnei Chayrim. That's only if the peiros grew more after you sold it. After you sold the second field. In other words, if Shimon had a field and Reuben stole it from him and sold it to Levi, and Levi had a second field that he sold to someone else. Oh, and Reuben had a second field that he sold to someone else, sorry. You can't take the Paris from Reuven, or maybe even Levi, depending on who ate the Paris. You can't take it from Levi from his Meshubadin from the fields that he had sold. But that's only if the Paris didn't have a defined value before he sold it, and they increased in value after he sold the second field. And the Gemara explains like this: Kaachil. Let's say it was worth 4 dinrin, and then it improved to 6 after he sold his another field. Levi Levi can take the 4 from the Meshubadin of Reuven, because that was kotzutz. It was kotzuv. But he takes the other 2 from the Bnei Chayrin of Shimon. From the Bnei Chayrin of Reuven, sorry, not from Shimon, from the Bnei Chayrin of Reuven. So they changed the girsa, because that only improved afterwards. He paid for it, but it wasn't really his. And let's say Shimon the Nigzal is taking the Paris back. I guess that's the case of the Yerushalmi. So what does Levi get from Reuven? He's getting the 4 dinrin that he paid for that are at a set value. He gets from Reuven's. He gets from Reuven's Meshubadim even. The 2 that it improved afterwards, after he sold it, that he's going to take from the Bnei Chayrin of Reuven, from the fields that are not sold of Reuven. Okay. Rabbavan b'shem Rabbanan detam. Rabbavan in the name of the Chachamim over there, probably from Bavel. Ein l'cha yoder b'shus v'yodei l'tachtoin etzel Shimon. Levi was Yerushalmi b'shus. It's a Sadik Zula. When Levi went into this field, it was stolen. It was stolen. He didn't know that it was stolen. So therefore, he's always considered Yodei al Tachtena. So for example, let's say he improved the field and he invested a lot of money. Shimon's only going to pay him his investment. He's not going to pay him for the Shevach. What if the field improved less than what he invested? You only pay the Shevach. So in other words, depending on expense versus how much it improved, you can either pay the expense or you're going to pay for the improvement. Always Yodei Tachtena. Shimon always wins because he was considered Yerushalmi b'shus. Rabbi Yosi Baraboin b'shem Rabbanan detamon says, Levi didn't know it was stolen. So opposite Reuven, the Gazlan, he's always considered Yodei Elyono. So we're talking about, it's interesting. It's a very interesting situation. Shimon is going to pay Levi less than what Shimon is going to pay Levi less than what it's worth. And in other words, Shimon's going to pay Levi either as investment or the Shevach, depending on what's less. And Levi is going to get from Reuben, the thief who had stolen to him and not told him, he's going to Yodei Elyono. When he's going to recoup his losses, he's going to take from Reuben whatever it was. Now we're talking about a situation of if Reuben whatever Reuben owes him, Yodei Elyono. According to Pnei it's machloikis that the second opinion is arguing and saying he could be goyve from Reuven, whatever he wasn't able to collect from Shimon the Nigzal, Shimon who was stolen from him. Reuven, we're going further. Reuven Shagoso, difficult stuff. Reuven Shagoso saw the Shimon and Levi. Let's say Reuven stole a field from Shimon, right? And this is always the case that we're talking about. He stole a field from Shimon and he sold it to Levi. Then Levi gave it as a gift to Yehuda. So again, Reuven stole from Shimon, and then Reuven sold it to Levi, and Levi gave it as a gift to Yehuda. Shimon Vitar from Yehuda. Now Shimon wants his field back. So we're talking about a field, right? So he's taking his field. And who's he taking it from? Yehuda, who got it as a gift. So what could Yehuda do? He got it as a gift. Yehuda lo yozil gabi Levi di matan. It was too good to be true. He had a gift. He can't go back to Levi. It was a gift. But what about Levi? Can Levi get his money back from Reuben? So what do you guys think? Can Levi get his money back from Reuben? The fact is he gave it away for free, so why should he get his money back? Says the Yerushalmi, Levi also gabe Reuben. Levi can get his money back, even though he gave it away for free. Why? Because he spent money on it. So the Gemara asks the obvious question, you gave it away for free, so how can he go back to Reuben? Reuben will tell him, what do you mean? You don't care. You gave it away for free to Yehuda. You gave it as a gift. You could tell Reuben, boy, Havina Meitan Levi, Yerushalmi Tiva. I was given to him as a gift to get a tova from him. You don't just give a gift for no reason. You give a gift for a reason. So I gave it to him for a reason. And now he lost the field. So I want my money back. I no longer have teva sanof from the gift. I want my money back from you. From Reuben, the thief. Kitzur, Reuben caused a lot of issues. Another case, Reuben goes also the Shimon. Let's say Reuben stole the field from Shimon and he gave it as a gift. So he stole it. Why not give it as a gift? If you're a thief, what's a big deal? Then Levi sold it to Yehuda. Then Shimon then took it away from Yehuda because it was his field after all. Yehuda also got Levi. Yehuda could go to Levi because he sold it to him. But Levi also got Reuben. Levi has no tightness against Reuben. It's considered a gift. The Rabbi Yosef Shim Rabbanan in Shibud Matana. Rabbi Yosef said in the name of the Chachamim, there's no such thing as a shibud. He doesn't owe him anything for a gift. So the thief Reuben doesn't owe Levi money. What? Reuben goes also the Shimon. Next case, Reuben goes also the Shimon to Levi. Reuben stole the field from Shimon and sold it to Levi. Now this is very interesting. Basically, Reuven, who stole the field from Shimon, Shimon was his father. That's a pretty messy situation. He stole his father's field. So obviously his father wants his field back. And he didn't have a chance to get it back, and then he died. So where does the field go to now?
Reuven.
It goes to Reuven. But the money, who does it belong to? So this is the question. Reuven sold it, but he sold it when he was a thief. Do we say the sale is valid, or do we say, I think we had a similar question in the Bavli. Do we say the sale is valid, or do we say that it's not valid because he sold it when he had stolen it? Now he wants the field back and he wants to give the money back. He wants it both ways. Rav Huna Rav Chia Berei Rav. There's a machlokes between Rav Huna and Chia Berei Rav. Chad Omer im Kasser Shtar Tipro Shel Reuven, Bim Lav Shel Levi. If he wrote the Shtar Tirpoi, if Shimon had written the Shtar to get his field back, so that means that the sale's canceled, and the field will now belong to Reuven. And Reuven obviously is going to have to give the money back to Levi. But if there was no Shtar, so it stays with Levi. He was Yerushalmi. And he had already sold it, so it's too bad. It automatically stays with Levi. And Shimon never had a chance to cancel it. B'charna Omar, the other shitta is he ksav, he lo ksav, shel Levi. No matter what, it belongs to Levi. With the star, without the star, it belongs to Levi. He sold his schus. Too bad, he sold his schus. Even if there was a star. Now, if Shimon had already taken the field back, that's a different story. But if he only wrote the star, it's not enough. It will still belong to Levi. He gets the field. Omer Rav Mana mistabra deloy Reuven. Rav Mana agrees with the opinion that says no matter what, it doesn't belong to Reuven. You can tell him, I sold you something. Mistabra deloy Reuven. Oh, that's a weird lashon. So fakert. It means it makes sense that it does belong to Reuven. So this is a third shita. No matter what, it will belong to Reuven. No matter what, the sale is canceled. It's a third shita. He can tell him, it wasn't mine. I sold you something that wasn't mine. I was a thief. It was mine. He was a thief, but it wasn't mine. I'll give you your money back. Rabbi Yosef Rabbein is a fourth shita. He says for sure belongs to Levi, no matter what. No, sorry, it's not a fourth shita. This is the second shita that we said. No matter what, it should belong to Levi. Akum lizvine tavat. He could say, Hi de la kumech, akim zvine tavis. Hi de la kumech. That the field is not in front of you. This is not in front of you. Akum lizvine tavois. I want to be Mekayim my mechira b'toiv. It's not in front of you now. Shimon never took it away. So I want to be Mekayim my mechira. And he has no choice. He had already bought it. He already paid. So he wants to say it. Okay, let's go a little further. We're on Daf Chov Zayin Amud Aleph in this Gemara. And we're still in Chov Ches Amud Aleph in the old Yerushalmi. Ma'u ligvois parnosa min ha-mishabadim. So parnosa is to marry off. You take Isur Nechosim, you take 1/10 of the property. So let's say the sons were Yerush, the Yisraelim, the sons were Yerush, they get the Yerusha, they deal with the Yerusha. The daughters, when they get married, they get 1/10 of it, 10%. Can you take it from properties that they had sold? That they had sold? Reb Zira said the Rabbi Yochanan would not. He would not be goive parnosa from Mishubadim, from property that was sold. Man Gavi, Reb Chanina Rabila Gavi. So machlokes among the Amoraim, Rabbi Yochanan would not be goive, but Reb Chanina and Reb Ila would be goive. Reb Yasa ispakid. Reb Yasa, he had a pikadon. So a little bit of a. Well, we'll see the story. He had a pikadon of property of the Yisraelim. Gave. Gave midal yasmin. Madal yasmin. Ispakid gabe madal yasmin. Sorry. By him, there was a pikadon of the property of the Yisraelim. Babu Tam and Yasmin buying parnasa. And there were some girls who needed the 10% for their parnasa. So the question came in front of what's his name? Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov.
Oh.
And according to the Korban Eder, can you give to them from the metaltalin, from the movable property, or only from land? It makes sense that you should give it to them from their father's property rather than from tzedakah. He said, Rebbe, if it would come in front of Rabbi Seinu, they had this shaila that they didn't answer if you could take parnosa, the 10% for the dower from metaltalin. We're going to do a ma'isa, we're going to take from the metaltalin. Rabbi Yasa said, I know, we see his tzidkus, he was a tzaddik, I know yoivlein, I'll give it. I know yoivlein. And if the Yisraelim, the boys are going to be upset, they're going to protest, then I'll give them from my own property to pay them back. Says the Gemara, afilu kein kamun v'adarun. And what happened was they were ma'oder. There's a different gear, so that they were not ma'oder. They got up, and he changes the gears to the carbonate. They were not ma'oder. They were makabel. What is that? Kevin, what is that? What do you think?
Chamun mean?
They saw.
Oh, they saw.
Oh, they saw. Okay. All right. Gzar din nofak. Tzipor bas of Shalom. There was a gzar din on a girl whose name was Tzipor, the daughter of Shalom. Reb Simoin, Reb Yaakov Arid, B'Shem Reb Shim Bar Baya, Anov, Rabbi Seinu Gavinu Lo, Min Metaltalin Keminig Mekayim. I and the Rabbi Seinu, we were goyve for her from the Metaltalin like the Minig Mekayim, like the custom of the place. It says in the Carbonado over there, the minig was to give them from Metaltalin because they were Bali Schroeder, they had a lot of proud merchandise. Rav have a Ksivla Rebbe. Rav wrote to Rebbe. Avronol Daite. He wrote him a question to Rebbe. Avron Odaita the Reb Chia Rabba. So there's two explanations. Either Reb Chia saw the letter before Rebbe saw it. It came to Reb Chia first, or that Rebbe showed it to him. Rebbe showed it to Reb Chia. They were all related. The Reb Chia Kosiv Ben Ishitaya. And Reb Chia wrote an answer between the lines. And he wrote like this: Omdu Yisayimim Umachru. If the Yisayimim sold their property, Goivin Mina Parnosa, for the Parnosa you could take from the Mushabadim, from the property that has been sold. Vein Goivin Amazonis, but not for Mazonis, not for to feed them. Omdu Vishibdu Hashibra Zaini de Mahu. So the question was, what's the shibud? What are we talking about? Are we talking about the shibud of the sons, or are we talking about the shibud of the father? Even the father, even if the father sold it, you could take because he owes it for his daughters. Even if the father sold it, because even b'chayov you could take for parnosa of the daughters. That's a big chid. You would think the father sells a different story. Rababa disagreed. He said like this. Sorry. Yeah. We're not talking about Shibud Av. We're talking about Shibud Ben. That's what he says. We're talking about that the Yisraelim were b'Shabbat, that they sold the property, you could take it from the buyers for the sake of the parnosa. The reason why we can't be talking about Shibud Av, even Shibud Av and B'chayav and Lakoshkin Lachar Mitzvah, while the father's alive, we're not going to take from the Lekoichas. All of a sudden, when he dies, you can take from the Lekoichas. It doesn't make sense. So rather, if the father sells it, no, the father sells it's different. If the Yisraelim sell it, because the moment the father died, there's a shib. The daughters are it's part of the Yerusha. They're part of the Yerusha. They can't just sell it. That's a different story. But if the father sells it while he's alive, so then it's lost. The daughters are not going to get it. Man. The daughters.
He married them off.
What?
He married off his daughters, right? That's what it literally means, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And she brought in the property to her husband. The almana could be nizoidis from them.
What do you mean the almanah? You mean whose wife is that? The almanah. A little confused. There's two daughters, but the almanah is in singular. Maybe the father's wife.
Let's say they pass away.
Yes.
The daughter passes away. The almana can take, now that we're not allowed to take for the mezayna isha from Meshubadin. Here, because we're talking about an almana, basically like this. Let's say they brought a dowry into the marriage, and then the husband passed away. They're allowed to eat from that dowry as their mezainis.
Okay.
I think that's the job. Rabbi Ketidei, Rabbi Yehuda Ketidei. Rabbi Okay, I think maybe we'll stop here because I see it's getting into another sugya. Oh, it's actually it's almost a 2 dots, so we'll just go to 2 dots. This is different girsa. Rabbi Kedidei or Bididei v'Rabchia Bididei. Okay, what are we talking about? It explains like this. The Achted Rabbi Yisrael b'Chanina b'Shem Rabbi Yezi b'Rabchage afilu meisa almana nizanis b'hem. We say
I'm in the middle of running share. I just left the whole tab.
the grandson of No, I think I'll have to stop here. I have to relearn this. All right. I guess we'll stop here. We'll continue in Mitzvah Hashem tomorrow. We've made some progress.
So,
Great.
the first.